ultimately the institutional knowledge, the things that we keep talking about, Ryan, as a company, as an organization, is this gap in tribal knowledge where you have a legacy system in place, but you may have an older workforce that's been using this thing for 20, 25, 30, 35 years. So they know the tricks of the trade, right? They know how to get through this thing. That ultimately has no visibility on your P&L. So why is it not a problem? Why is it not on the forefront? Because exactly how you open the call, it's not hitting the numbers. And if it doesn't hit the numbers, it's not a priority.
Welcome to Agile Talks. I'm back again. It's me, guest host Ryan, and 3D Agility's fearless leader, Mark. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'll actually be thrilled when you stop using this guest title. Just host.
Okay.
Let's just cut to the butt. It's host.
I'll be thrilled. I'll be thrilled the day that you ask me how I'm doing. Okay. You know what? That's what I'll be thrilled about. Nobody ever asks.
Listen, when you drop host, fair enough.
Nobody ever asks.
It's not starting today.
Yeah, no, not today. Nobody ever asked the host. All right. So today we're going to be talking about legacy systems. So when I say legacy systems, I mean legacy computer systems. So like old CRMs aren't that old, but I guess old CRMs could work. ERPs, inventory systems, Excel sheets that people are calling inventory systems, right? List can go on and on. We're talking legacy computer. I'm assuming maybe some paper-based programs, but mostly computer-based programs here.
Ones and zeros.
Ones and zeros. All right. And today we're going to talk about the fact that, hey, I actually titled this episode in my notes, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, right? Because legacy systems, while we may not like them, do have some good parts that have, there's some good, right? There's some bad, and then sometimes it gets real ugly. And how do you evaluate your legacy system and decide what the next best move is for you? So let's start with the good. So if we're all honest, even though sometimes we don't like legacy systems, most legacy systems are in place because the company is still profitable. I know you sent me a newsletter yesterday and they were talking about the fact that, like, hey, some of these legacy systems in existing companies, like, they're just pumping out cash like nobody's business. So why would you change the system? So give me your thoughts on, between me and you, legacy systems, they're not all that bad, right? There are some major benefits to them. And what are they?
I think it's the old adage: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's kind of the mindset. To your point, if the executive team or the leadership team is sitting in a room and the company's profitable, they're making money, times are good, it's hard to kind of understand the flip side of that. So legacy systems are in place; they're tried and true. Your workforce understands them. So yeah, they're putting money in the bank, and it's the way that we do business. I'd probably pause though and offer the argument of, you're not really managing that legacy system. You're just negotiating with it, where you're biding time for when this thing won't work anymore, right? You're trying to understand when is that absolute stopgap that you have to make a hard decision. And that is the reality of most leadership teams. We are, 15 things on our to-do list, and typically changing that ERP or that inventory system or whatever it may be is on the bottom, right? You have other priorities, other things that you need to focus on. But that is the ultimate question for anyone listening to the call: is what will break the stalemate, and what will force you into that decision of, it is now time to look at other ways to run our business. And that's the other side of it, is when do you realize that legacy has more power in your organization than everybody using it?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of, so this is something I actually spend a lot. I do not have an operations background. I don't have like, it's something that I care about a lot because I've worked in businesses that have had legacy systems and they've always annoyed me. Um, it's one of those things when you look at like the bad part of legacy systems is that at a certain point they do hit like I wouldn't call it a tipping point. The tipping point is like the ugly part of it, right? But the bad part about it is like they're just a pain to use for a lot of the people who you're using the system, and they just deal with it, right? I remember having a conversation with the CFO that I worked with, and we were talking about moving to a different ERP, and I just happened to be running the project. And I remember him going like, I really want to move to a different ERP, but I'm so backed up with work that I can't even take the time to sit down and look at like what I would need, because I kept asking him like, you need to tell me what you need out of this new move. And he's like, I don't even have time to do it because of how bad the legacy system is. We're still getting stuff out the door, but I have no way to look at what is in the future. And I always feel like I'm in reactive mode. And that's when I think about the bad of legacy systems is like people are just kind of beaten down and accepted by the fact that, hey, this is just the way it is. And then I think when it turns ugly is one or two, you actually have people start revolting and going like, this is absolute, BS. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this thing. This is absolute BS. I'm not dealing with this anymore, right? Or the bigger issue is from a technology standpoint, it starts crashing and you're patching and you're spending a lot of time and money either having systems down or getting the brutal, hey, we're sunsetting any service on this in 9 months. And if it breaks, it's on you. So, is there anything specific that you could think of with anyone you've talked to or businesses that you've worked with or worked in where it's just gotten so bad that it went ugly or, kind of like it almost is like,
I think
go ahead.
you hit on a couple really good points. Really good points. I think it's not a line item, and that's where it is hidden in most businesses' P&Ls. And the reality is, it's a way bigger drain than what most people realize. Because where organizations are spending their money, they're spending their money on bringing in people to kind of translate these two worlds of, hey, this is how it should work versus this is how it actually works, right? Like, oh, it should be this prompt. Yeah, but in that situation, it's not that prompt because we're shipping to Europe. And in order to ship to Europe, we have to go through this DC, and that DC can only ship to these two countries. Like, it is all of these exceptions that stack up, right? So I think to hire the people to be able to translate those instances, to be able to understand all the workarounds is huge. And then ultimately the institutional knowledge, the things that we keep talking about, Ryan, as a company, as an organization, is this gap in tribal knowledge where you have a legacy system in place, but you may have an older workforce that's been using this thing for 20, 25, 30, 35 years. So they know the tricks of the trade, right? They know how to get through this thing. That ultimately has no visibility on your P&L. So why is it not a problem? Why is it not on the forefront? Because exactly how you opened the call, it's not hitting the numbers. And if it doesn't hit the numbers, it's not a priority. But what it is, so the other interesting point that you brought up, what it is having an impact in is your team's morale and the velocity in which that they can make decisions. And those are two big ones that are very, very hard to quantify.
Yeah, it is funny. I sold EHR software for like small, so like electronic health record software for small offices, like not hospitals, wasn't competing with Epic. But it was funny because you would see a lot of doctors' offices or a lot of offices in general that would like, hey, I'm getting a discovery call and I'm going like, why are you looking for a new product? And they're like, oh, Nancy, who ran our office for 30 years, just retired, and we all realized that she was holding this together with bubble gum and super glue, and she was the only one who knew the process. And we've had all of these issues since then. And the doctor finally was like, we need to get a new system in place. This thing's absolute crap. I didn't realize it. Right. And that's, I can only imagine if you're running
Yep.
a multi-million billion-dollar organization, that there are probably a bunch of Nancys throughout that organization that are holding together your legacy system. And if Nancy retires, it will hit your P&L because you're going to not be able to ship out product and have a bunch of issues. So, all right, let's talk about the upside then, or what it looks like. Go ahead.
I think before we move on, it's obviously that it was obvious that you're very close to Nancy. You got choked up there. So I appreciate kind of the connection that you had with her and that passion that you had for a coworker that was struggling. So that is near and dear to my heart. I think the question that a lot of leadership or the C-suite should be asking in these situations is, have you actually created a project team to understand the workaround cost? That is a great baseline. And maybe it's one function or one process, that is tied to these legacy systems. But I guarantee it'd be an eye opener if you really took the time to understand the workaround cost. And then ultimately, once you understand that as a leadership team is, okay, what is the breaking point, or what would get our attention to make this a priority, right? What is the straw that breaks the camel's back for us to really sit down and understand what the next generation of our system looks like, or where do we have the most exposure, whether it's from a revenue standpoint, a quality standpoint. I think that's a super fair baseline that creates a really dynamic discussion around what is this, or what are these systems actually costing us as a company.
So yeah, I think that's an amazing point. And I think that is what, right. I'm assuming your suggestion is that even if you're not really evaluating, hey, we're looking to make a move in the next 12 months, that should be something that every business should be doing at some point, is having a committee or a team that meets quarterly or every 6 months and kind of evaluates, like, hey, where are we at with our processes and how do they tie into our technology? And I think if you do a consistent assessment of that, you'll have a way better understanding of, like, well, hey, we're going towards that tipping point. We need to take a step back and see what the next thing that we have to do is. I guess my other part is that I do think we should acknowledge is, like, switching to new systems isn't. I think we would be lying if we said switching to a new system is like snapping your fingers and it's easy as can be, right? There are obviously inherent risks with switching from one thing to another, especially when it's an institutional system. But I mean, obviously the upside's there. So is there anything you can think of or that you've seen or that you would recommend for groups of, like, hey, here's how I think you should try to mitigate risk, or here are ways that you can mitigate risks? Because it is scary. Let's be honest. Like, if it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not.
Sure.
So that's why people don't do it.
Sure. And that's it. It goes back to that risk tolerance. And I think sometimes we don't want to know what we don't know, right? It's like you don't necessarily want to know what's happening in the kitchen of your favorite restaurant because, the truth will scare you, type of thing. But you know what? The food's delicious. I love the servers, and it's my favorite joint to eat. That is business sometimes, where you are forced to focus on the things that are right in front of your face, the things that are jeopardizing business tomorrow, not, business 12 months from now. So that's part of it. I think in this conversation, the way that you need to look at it, or the opportunity to look at it, is treat it like surgery. So pick the function that you really see as a at risk, or the system at risk, because this exercise should not just be about moving data, right? In this AI revolution, where we've seen some of our clients fail is they literally picked up their data set, dumped it into a model, and then within a month, everyone has their hands in the air saying this thing doesn't work. The opportunity here is to really take a look at the processes and to understand where the opportunities for improvement are. And that's the biggest difference. If you do that, then the outcome of this thing is not just understanding the current complexities that you have. You might actually see the constraints that the legacy system was putting on your business, right? Because you had all of these workarounds, and it took 15 steps to get something out the door, or 15 steps to get a new order in. Reality is it took 15 steps because you constantly kept plugging holes in order to make it happen, versus, all right, what is the ideal process for this? How should this, this opportunity or this order flow? Then implement kind of best in class or best in state. That's a huge opportunity, Ryan. And I think that's where this process is painful, because you're taking 20, 30, 40, 50 years of habit, and you're kind of turning it on its head. And for anyone, again, we'll keep referencing ourselves, that's tough for human nature, right? I'm sure you have a routine every morning. Tomorrow, do everything backwards, right? And you will feel off the entire day, because you're going to feel like you missed something, something's not right. That's just how we're wired as people. So if we take some of those considerations into the equation as we're talking about org change, legacy change, technology change, we can mitigate some of those watchouts.
Yeah, no, I fundamentally agree. I think the biggest thing with any of these ones that I've been a part of or witnessed is always just people, like, it's uncomfortable. And because it's uncomfortable, people don't like fully talking about it and acknowledging things and going like, hey, this maybe having 5 checkpoints because the system can't check it for us is unnecessary, and that's, a lot of people don't like admitting that the way that they've done something forever is wrong. I think there's a inherent human trait there of going like, I don't want to seem like everything I did before was stupid, right? And the people who push boundaries are okay with being dumb, right? And I don't mean dumb in like a bad way. I mean dumb like sometimes what we do is dumb, right? I do
Vulnerable. Yeah, maybe
okay,
vulnerable.
all right,
Vulnerable,
all right.
not
no,
dumb.
I've done dumb things. I have done dumb things, and then said like, what I just did was dumb. Okay, has to be a better way to do it.
Right.
But I'm special. I like talking to myself like I'm David Goggins. So all right, this has been Agile Talks. Mark, thank you. Any parting advice? Just go explore. Go be curious. What do you want to tell these groups who are looking at software?
No, I mean, the big question on my mind is just, I mean, how do you think it went? Like, how are you doing today, Ryan? I just want to make sure you're happy before we hang this up.
We got to go. All right. Thank you. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Bye.